Now, are you able to see the slide? Anyone respond by voice? Slide is visible or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'm going to start today's lecture. So today we'll discuss about again. I will give you recap of linear space. Linear space. Then I will go to discuss in detail about subspecies, and it is totally different perspective that we try to generalize whatever we had already studied till now. So it is all these are related with generalization concept. Right now we are just doing little bit generalization. After that we will go for further application of this generalized concept. So today we will talk about linear space and subspecies. So outline of my today's lectures are the following. First, I would like to give a recap of linear subspace or vector subspace. Vector space. Then I will talk about in detail of subspace of a linear space. Then I will go to discuss in detail about basis, dimension, and coordinate. And with respect to coordinate, once we will have idea of finding coordinate of any kind of vector. So remember that here vector is no more only Euclidean vectors that we are getting. We had already seen 2D vector, 3D vector kind of things. So here vector may be anything. It may be polynomial, it may be function, it may be anything. So that one is coming from a special structure. That a structure we are calling it linear space. And then, if time permit, I will go to discuss about Minkowski sum of subspaces. So coming to recap of linear subspace, what does it talk about? So I will give a geometric vector as a linear subspace. One more example we are taking from geometric vector. It was given by Descartes that we are calling. We can say that Descartes was father of coordinate geometry. Like Euclid he was father of geometry, and Descartes was father of coordinate geometry. So that means coordinate geometry. You can say that it is a very good mixture of algebra with geometry. When you try to see geometry from algebraic point of view, then you are getting a coordinate picture. So that's why you can say that this idea is coming from without a coordinate system. We don't have any coordinate system. We are having a plane with a reference point origin. And so simply we can say that we are having a coordinate free system. So a geometric vector V in this plane, it is just we can denote it by an arrow like displacement vector or a directed line segment. And with its tail at it would be origin. So due to that we can call it geometric vector. You can it is nothing. It is a position vector of a point. You can also call it. But remember that we don't have any coordinate system. By introducing a coordinate system, we can identify the plane of the geometric vector with two-dimensional Euclidean place. Article that Descartes was the father of coordinate geometry. So like here, so here O, this O, we call it origin, that reference point, and with respect to this reference point, we are having a geometric vector V, and which is denoted by a directed line segment with arrow V. Now here, if you take two vector V and W, and if you sum, then again we see that that means geometric vector is closed with respect to addition. Similarly, if you take any geometric vector V and you multiply with some scalar, then what you are getting? So like scalar you take 3, so multiply V with 3 times. So you are getting another vector in the same direction. So again, that means you are getting one more geometric vector. That means geometric vector is closed with respect to a scalar multiplication as well. So that's why the collection of all geometric vectors in a plane, it forms a linear space or a vector space. This one is the geometrical picture. Now we are coming to subspace. So subspace, same idea what we had already studied till now. So subspace, you can say that subspace W, it is a subset of V. It is a subset of V, and we will call W a subspace of V if it satisfies three properties. First, W must contain the neutral or zero element of V. First criteria. Here, you in last case we had defined subspace like this one. This that time subspace was totally independent of. We haven't defined. Not I don't. I would look now. It is not like the subspace is totally independent of a linear space. But in last class, in few last lectures, we had seen that subspace we had defined with respect to matrices. So in that case, we used to find zero element in that subspace. First criteria was zero element, and second criteria was it must be subspace must be closed with respect to addition. That means if you take any two element W1, W2 from W, then the summation is again in W. So if you are taking two element from W, and we observe that it is closed with respect to addition, that means summation of those two elements is again in W, then we say that W is closed with respect to addition. This idea we had already seen during finding subspaces of matrix or subspaces of transformation. And third criteria of being subspace of a matrix was what? It must be closed with respect to a scalar multiplication. That means you take any scalar alpha, that means a scalar means it is just a real number, a scalar alpha, or it may be complex number as well. It depends upon which scenario you are taking. So alpha is a real number, and you take any element W from the capital W. So in that perspective, we observe that a scalar multiple of W with alpha, it happens to be in W itself. So last two property we call it short name linear combination of vector. So W is closed. So W is closed with respect to linear combination. You can simply say that W is closed with respect to linear combination. Is closed with respect to linear combination. So this criteria we had already seen during finding subspaces of matrices. Now we are defining matrices now with respect to linear space or vector space. So linear combination. So I would like to write in short form LC, linear combination. So now we had already seen, we are coming to define subspace W as a subset of a vector space or linear space B. So what are the criteria? W must contain zero element of zero of, simply you can say that zero of V. Second criteria is W must be closed under addition. Addition, what addition? This addition is coming from V. That means W must be closed with respect to addition of V, vector linear space V. That means if you take any two element F and G from W, then summation would be again in W. And this summation is you are taking from V. The summation is defined, it is already defined in V. And W is also closed with respect to scalar multiplication. A scalar multiplication, again, it is borrowed from the linear space or vector space V. That means if you take any element F from W and a scalar alpha, then corresponding to scalar multiple alpha time F, it would be again in W. So we can summarize as part B and part C. We say that W is closed with respect to linear combination. So similarly here also it is feasible. So similar to subspaces of matrices, here also it is common that A, B and C, you can say that W is closed with respect to linear combination. That one is enough. And first property is W must contain zero of V. Now we are having a problem that we have to prove that the polynomial, the collection of all polynomials of degree up to 2. Remember that I'm saying that degree up to 2, that means a polynomial of the form a plus bx plus c square. it forms a subspace of the function space from R to R. So you are taking collection of all polynomial of degree up to T2. So that the collection we denote it by P2. So here W is what? W polynomial, again polynomial. What is polynomial? Polynomial, you can say that it is a function from R to R. So it is domain of a polynomial always happens to be what? Complete real number. So that's way polynomial is a function from R to R, and range happens to be subset of R. So that's why we are saying that polynomial is, it belongs to function of space. So here W is your P2. So we will try to see that P2 is a subset vector space V equal to FRR. That means function of collection of all function from R to R. So what are the steps? The similar step we will apply. First step that we will look for zero element of zero element in W. So that means whether W contains zero function of the function of space V. Call it this V is your linear space. V is F function collection of all function from R to R. So zero polynomial. Zero polynomial is what? Every coefficient happens to be zero. So this one is what? Zero polynomial. Zero polynomial is always again in, you can say that what is the degree of the zero polynomial? It may be n is always in W. So it contains W contains zero element of V. There is no issue. Now next what we will do, whether W is closed with respect to addition or not. That means function addition. What addition here? Here in FRR, what is the definition of addition? It is defined like this way. If you are taking any two function from the linear space FRR, then what will happen? How we define addition of two functions, and it defined through domain. Domain of FR is what? FRR is R. So that's way it would be defined as F plus G over X. It would be F of X plus F of G of X. So remember that here addition operation we are borrowing from where? We are borrowing from function of space R to R, FR to R. So here all polynomial up to degree 2. So definitely polynomial again happens to be function from R to R. So we are taking two polynomial. One polynomial is f of x equal to a plus bx plus cx square, and another polynomial we are taking it g of x. G of x equal to p plus qx plus rx. Both are polynomial up to degree 2. What is meaning of up to degree 2? If you see this polynomial, your direct answer would be this one. This fx is a polynomial of degree 2, but it may not be. Why? Because suppose if you take c equal to 0, third coefficient, if you are taking c equal to 0, then what does it becomes? It becomes just linear. That means it is a polynomial of degree 1. If suppose someone is taking coefficient b equal to 0 as well, in that case the function f of x, the polynomial is just a constant. So that means 0 degree polynomial. So that's why if you take so it depends upon if you take a equal to, so that's why I'm saying that we are taking polynomial up to degree 2. So up to degree 2, it means that at least one coefficient must be okay. Up to degree 2, it's fine. So here what is meaning of exactly degree? If I'm saying that a polynomial, we are taking a polynomial of exactly degree 2, it means that c must be non-zero. If c is non-zero, then we will say this polynomial is exactly of degree 2. But if you are saying up to degree 2, then it will be a constant, it may be a linear polynomial, or it may be a quadratic. So up to degree W contain a constant, it may contain a linear polynomial, it may contain a quadratic polynomial. So that is the scenario. So we are taking two polynomial from W up to degree 2, and we do summation. So if you do summation, then what would happen? Summation, it is borrowed from F R to R. So if you define summation like this way, so what happens? So we are having a new polynomial with coefficient a plus b as the constant coefficient, or b plus q, it is the coefficient, linear coefficient, and c plus r, it is the quadratic coefficient. So again we observe that summation of f and g again happens to be a polynomial of degree up to 2. So that's way it is a this summation, sum of these two polynomial is again in W. So that's way W is close with respect to addition operation of FRR, addition operation of functions. Similarly, W is close with respect to a scalar multiplication. Why? Because if you take any polynomial of degree up to 2 and you multiply with a scalar alpha, then what you observe that you observe that every coefficient of that polynomial becomes it multiplied by a scalar alpha. So it is not changing the degree. So that's way again it remains of the polynomial up to order 2. So that is the scalar multiple of a polynomial is again in W. So W is close with respect to addition. So here W, that is collection of all the polynomial of degree up to 2 satisfy 3 properties. So that's where W is a subspace of the linear space. This function linear space, this linear space. So we had already established through 3 different approaches. So there would be 3 steps. Always try to establish in that perspective. I am taking another class of function. That function, those functions are differentiable functions. So suppose we are taking W here. It is a collection of all differentiable function from R to R. That means what are the differentiable functions? That like sine x, cosine x, and x square x. All these are class of all differentiable function. Several different. So here from you can define a variety of differentiable function from R to R. And FRR is what? It is talking about collection of all the function from R to R. So it is a largest collection of function defined from R to R, and that form a linear space. So here your V is what? Always design, you find your question would be what is V. Once you come across V, then next you are willing to find subspace in that V. So what would be nature of subspace? So nature of subspace, it will come from a specific property. So here a specific property we put it here, that we are taking W, it is a collection of all differentiable functions defined from R to R. Now we will look to see whether this W is a subspace of linear space, this linear space V or not. So what are the steps? A step is again, a step 1, we will look to find 0 element in W. If you are taking f of x equal to 0, that means it is a 0 function. That means for every x it mapped to 0. So whether this function is what kind of function? This one is one kind of constant function, and we know that every constant function is differentiable. That's way this function 0 function always belongs to this 0 function belongs to W. So that means W is having 0 element of V. So fx equal to 0, it says that that f is a 0 function and 0 belongs to W for every x. So f is a 0 function. You can simply say that f is a 0 function. So W is having a 0 element. There is no issue. Now next property, we will see that whether W is close with respect to addition. That means we will take 2 differentiable function and we will see that whether sum of 2 differentiable function again happens to be differentiable. Definitely. So if you define you are taking 2 function differentiable function f and g, then what will happen? You define find the derivative of sum. So derivative of this f plus g defines, and you know that derivative is compatible with this bracket, and it will come out. So derivative of f plus g, it would be what? Summation of derivative of fx plus gs and derivative of gx. So that's way W, that means the collection of all differentiable function is close with respect to addition. Similarly, you will see that W is closed with respect to a scalar multiplication as well. That means if you take a differentiable function and multiply with a scalar, then and further find the derivative, then you will see that it is closed with respect to a scalar multiplication as well. So all these three criteria is satisfied by the collection of all differentiable function within the collection of all function. So that's where this W, that means class of differentiable function, form a subspace of subspace within class of all function from R to R. Similarly, if you take another collection of a special function that we are calling it class of infinitely a smooth function. Infinite means, that means you can differentiate as much as you want. You can differentiate function. Those function are very nice function, and generally we call it a smooth functions. So those function are polynomial. If you take a polynomial, you can define polynomial infinitely many times. So there would be no, so, infinitely polynomial is C. That's why polynomial is C infinity type function. Similarly, if you take exponential function, you can differentiate exponential function infinitely many times. So there is no issue. You know from calculus all these how you can differentiate and what would be derivative of this function. Similarly, if you take sine x and cosine x, so these are very important kind of function playing very important role in signal processing. So you can observe that what is happening here. So all these function are again differentiable infinitely many times. So these, if you take collection of all those functions, so this function will again form a subspace of FRR, similar to differentiable function. So this one is you can say that FRR is the largest collection of function. Then we put a condition. What is the condition? Differentiability. Due to differentiability, the collection of function has been reduced because we know that mod x is not differentiable, but mod x is a function from R to R, modulus of x. So that's why mod x, it would be not in this W, in the class of differentiable function. So that's why if you keep on putting few more condition, that means you are trying to restrict your collection of function. And that in that restricted class of function, you try to observe that whether that class form a subspace of the bigger class of function or not. So you have to look into in that perspective. Similarly, if you take the collection of all polynomial, only polynomial, so you can say that P is a, so here scenario is coming like this way. You can say that P is a subset. P is contained in P infinity, because P is talking about collection of all polynomial, and we know that every polynomial is differentiable infinitely many times. That means infinitely a smooth. So that's way. And apart from polynomial in C infinity, we are looking also, we are having exponential function. So exponential happens to be transcendental, and polynomial are coming in the algebraic category. So that's where there is a clear difference. So P is a proper subset of C infinity, as C infinity is a proper subset of W. W is what? It is class of differentiable function. It is the class of differentiable function. So W, but W is a what? It is a subset of FRR. That means FRR is what? It is a collection of function from R to R. So you can observe this kind of things. So further, you can say further that P is a, you can say that P is a subspace of C infinity. C infinity is a subspace at W, and W is a subspace of FRR. Similarly, also you can say that if P is a subspace of C infinity, that's a P is a subspace of FRR. So that means subspace of any subspace is again a subspace of the corresponding linear space. That is the criteria. Now we will talk about subspace. We will try to find subspace now in different way with respect to a matrix. It is not like that we are going to find 4 fundamental subspaces. It is different than that. So what is that? So we will find collection here, collection of all the matrices, 2 by 2 matrices, which commute with given matrix having entry 0, 2, 1, 3. We know that in general, if you take two matrix multiplication is not commutative. That means if you multiply a matrix with B and B with A, in general, it is not true. So that's why in the class of all 2 by 2 matrices, we try to find a very special matrix. Those are commutative with A. So it is not true in general. That means A times B is not equal to B times A in general. In a special case, it may be true. Like identity matrix is commutable with every matrix. So like we will try to find all those matrices and which are commutable with A, this given matrix A. So what are, so we will try to establish that means we try to establish what is the problem. We are having problem that we have to establish this subspace W. It would be a subspace of collection of all matrices. That means 2 by 2 matrices we denote it by R2 cross 2. It is a collection of all 2 by 2 matrices. Collection of all 2 by 2 matrices where the element of W satisfy that BA equal to AB. That means commutative property it satisfies. So every element of these having commutative property with A. So what are the criteria? We will look for first step. In first step, we will find zero element of W. So zero matrix. So if you take zero matrix, it satisfy zero matrix is commutable with every matrix. Due to that, zero matrix is also commutable with A. Why? Because if you multiply zero matrix with this given matrix A, then what would be multiplication? Multiplication would be 0. And if you multiply zero matrix, if you do post multiplication of zero matrix with A, again you are getting a zero matrix. So that's why zero matrix belongs to W. Why? Because zero matrix is commutable with A. So that means W is having zero element. Next, we will see that whether W is closed with respect to addition or not. So for that perspective, we will take any two element. Remember that any two element B1 and B2 from W. Why? Here B1 and B2 are coming from W. Due to that, it will imply that B1 is commutative with A. That means B1 times A equal to 8 times B1. Similarly, B2 is from W. That's why B2 times A equal to A times B2. Now we will look to see that whether B1 plus B2 is commutable with A or not. So we will multiply. We are doing pre-multiplication of B1 plus B2 with A. So if you multiply, then after the simplification, you will come to know that B1 plus B2 times A would be equal to B1 times A plus B2 times A. So that's way B1 times A you can write it like A times B1. Similarly, B2 is also commutable with A. So you can write B2 times A equal to is happening now here post multiplication. Here initially A was A happening here pre multiplication. Here initially A was in post multiplication situation. Now A is coming here pre multiplication situation. It simply signifies that B1 plus B2 is commutable with A. It means that B1 plus B2 is again in W. It means that W is closed with respect to addition. Similarly, we can prove that W is closed with respect to a scalar multiplication. This relation is very simple. This step 3 is very simple. You can establish yourself. I had already given the idea how to prove this. So we can claim that the collection of those specific matrices, it forms a subspace of 2 by 2 matrices. Collection of all 2 by 2 matrices. Now I will give one example that would be not a subspace. So this one is very important. When you will see that one given subset of a given linear space, it would be not a subspace. And how it would be not a subspace. So we consider W, it is a collection of all 2 by 2 invertible matrices, non-invertible matrices, all by 2 by 2 non-invertible matrices. So we will see that whether we will check or we will investigate whether this W is a subspace of R2 by 2. R2 by 2, I had already mentioned that and several times, it is a collection of all 2 by 2 matrices. Collection of all 2 by 2 matrices, and it always forms a vector space or linear space with respect to matrix addition and scalar multiplication. Collection of 2 by 2 matrices. Okay, so now we'll try to take or identify that this W is a subspace of this R2 by 2 or not. So what are the criteria? First step, we'll look for zero element. So zero is a what kind of matrix? Is it invertible or not? Zero matrix is never invertible. It is non-invertible matrix. That means zero is in W. So no issue. We will go to next step. In next step, what we will see that W is not closed under addition. Why? If you are taking two matrix, non-invertible matrix, 1 0 0 0 0 and another 0 0 0 1, and if you sum these two matrices, then what will be resultant? Resultant would be your identity matrix 1 0 0 1. So we know that identity matrix is it is an invertible matrix. So if it is invertible matrix, it can't be in W because W is the collection of all 2 by 2 non-invertible matrices. So that's way if you are taking two non-invertible matrices and you sum it up, then you are getting an invertible matrix. That invertible matrix, it is not in W. So that's way W is not closed with respect to addition. So we can say that it is not a subspace. This W, that means collection of all non-invertible 2 by 2 matrices is not forming a subspace of R2 by 2. That is the criteria. That means W fails to be a subspace of R2 by 2. Coming to a span, linear independence, and basis and coordinates. All these things we had already discussed, but I'm recalling from generalized perspective because we are looking for here vector. Those are not just numeric vector; it is more than that. We are looking vector. Those are having function form. So we consider the element of a vector space or linear space V are F1, F2, Fn. N number of elements we have taken from a linear space V. So that means these F1, F up to Fn, all these are element of linear space V. So V may be any space. It may be vector space. It may be Euclidean space. It may be matrices, a space of matrices, all spaces of matrices. It may be function space, whatever it is. So what is the linear span? Linear span is we define in the similar fashion what we had discussed about linear span of vector. So here we will say that we say that F1, F2 up to Fn it span V if every element of F, every element F in V, it can be expressed as a linear combination of F1 up to Fn. So that means you take arbitrarily you take any element from V and then you are able to write that element F as a linear combination of the given set of element of V. Those are given set of element is what? It is F1, F2 up to Fn. So you take any arbitrary element from V and you are able to write that one as a linear combination of this F1, F2 up to Fn. So then you can say that this vector or these elements span V. So that is the definition of linear span. Now, again, we had already seen redundant vectors. So here we are introducing equivalent word redundant element. What is that? So suppose we Fi ith here among these n number of element of linear space B. Suppose ith element we can express as a linear combination of first I minus one element, then we can say that Fi is redundant. Why? Because it is dependent on previous I minus one element. So that's why Fi, you can simply say that Fi is a redundant. So it brings dependency. So we need to remove out in order to get a linear independent state. Now, another concept we will introduce here, linear independence. So the given set of element L1, F1 up to Fn, we will call it linearly independent if none of them is redundant. If you observe, none of them is redundant here in this collection, then we can say that this n number of element happens to be linearly independent. That means in the similar fashion what we had discussed for vectors, we can say that the linear relation defined as alpha 1 times f1 plus alpha 1 time f2 plus up to alpha n time f1 equal to 0. If this linear relation is having only trivial solution, we know that with respect to this we will not call it it a system of linear equation. Why? F1 may be a function, f1 fi may be a function, and during vector fi is were vectors. So but here fi is are very general words. So here fi is, these may be function or maybe anything. So that's way we can't call directly it is a system of linear equation. So right now just we'll call it linear relation. If this linear relation is having only trivial solution, that means all coefficient happens to be zero, only zero. That means only zero linear combination equal to zero. Then we say that these are linearly independent. So here fi it may be function, ai it may be anything. Fi may, you can write it function or anything. It is not only vector, it is more than vector. So that is the criteria. So here also we will discuss about linear independent function. So what are the function meaning of linear independence? It is very interesting kind of approach that in your math too, you might have already seen that independent solution of second order differential equation. So how in that case you might have to, if you are having two function, two fundamental solution, then to establish uh, dependency or independency, what you had to do that time, you had to find Wronskian of those two fundamental solutions. Suppose in the in last class I had taken an example of differential equation, and there were two solutions, f1 was sine x and f2 was cosine x. So you had to find Wronskian happens to be determinant. It is determinant, that means derivative of f1. First, first row will be f1 and f2 similarly, and second row would be derivative of f1 and derivative of f2. That means f1 dash f2 dash. This we are calling it Wronskian of f1 and f2 solution. If this Wronskian is non-zero for every x, then you can say that those two functions f1 and f2 are linearly independent. If suppose it happens that Wronskian is zero for at least one x, then you will claim that f1 and f2 are no more linearly independent. So if it is non-zero for every x, then your function f1 and f2 would be linearly independent. This is the criteria of defining linear independent of function. So through Wronskian, you need to. I will also discuss how Wronskian is coming. It is not a very complicated kind of concept. So now I am coming to discuss about basis and coordinates of a linear space. So we say that the element f1, f2 up to fn, it form a basis of the linear space or vector space V if they span V. What does it mean? A span I had defined earlier. That means every element of V can be written as a linear combination of these elements. And apart from a spanning V, these elements F1 to Fn are also linearly independent. Then we will call F1, F2, it forms a basis of V. It simply say that this collection, this finite collection F1 to Fn, it is a minimal spanning and maximal linearly independent set of element of V. So I had already discussed that. What is meaning of minimal spanning? That means minimal means if you remove at least one element from this collection, then that collection is not going to span V completely. And what is the maximal independent? That means if you add one extra element here, then this then after that the collection would be no more linearly independent. So that is the meaning of minimal and maximal, minimal spanning and maximal independent. So this means that every element of V, every element of F in V can be written as a unique linear combination of these Fi's. That means if you are, that means you are having any element F from V, then you are able to write F equal to this linear combination of Fi, where this linear combination is uniquely defined. That means for every F, Fi's alpha is are unique. So these coefficient alpha 1 up to alpha n associated with basis element, we are calling it coordinate of F with respect to this basis. Coordinate of F. So it here the picture of coordinate is coming. Till now coordinate you had already seen, whatever coordinate you had already seen, those were very ideal coordinate, the coordinate defined with respect to a standard basis. That means a standard basis, if you are in R2, what is the standard basis? A standard basis of R2 is that perpendicular axis is direction of perpendicular axis. So if you are in R2, then a standard basis is 0, 1. 0 1 is the direction of horizontal axis x1, and 1 0 is the direction of horizontal axis x1 axis, and 0 1 is the direction of vertical axis So this basis we are calling it a standard basis. So till now, whatever from high school, whatever the idea of coordinate you are having, you had already come across a standard basis and the corresponding coefficient of a standard basis. A standard basis. So till that time you had idea of a standard basis only. Now we will going to generalize the idea of a standard basis to any general basis. So that's way the idea of coordinate will also, it will be generalized. So this vector now, this coordinate of F, we can write as a column vector, and we call it a beta coordinate of F. So this beta we denote it by the collection of basis element. So this coefficient as a column vector, we are calling it beta coordinate of F, and we denote it by this in order to relate with basis. So this is the standard notation. So you can say that f of beta equal to this column vector. So with respect to that coordinate vector, we can define a coordinate transform. What is the coordinate transformation? So coordinate transformation, it is a linear transformation. Remember that it is again a linear transformation from the given vector space or linear space V to Rn. So what I had told that we are trying to establish a 1-1 correspondence between vector space of dimension n to Euclidean space n. This one is 1-1 correspondence between. So here V may be any kind of vector space. That means element of V may be function, maybe matrix, maybe anything. But if suppose in the basis of this V is having n element, then we can always find 1-1 correspondence between V and Rn. So that is the idea. So that 1-1 correspondence we can define with the help of this coordinate transformation. So how we define it? The coordinate transformation L, it is defined from a vector space of dimension n. So remember that the dimension of vector space is here n. That means basis contains n number of linearly independent element of V. So your dimension of V is equal to n. So the coordinate transformation L, it is defined from V to Rn in such a way L of the F is mapped to coordinate. F is mapped to coordinate of F with respect to basis element. So you can simply say that F is mapped to another representation of this function. You can say that F is mapped to coordinate of the corresponding element with respect to basis beta. Basis beta. Okay, and this transformation we are calling it. So because this transformation is carried out by basis beta, so that's why this transformation we are calling it beta coordinate transformation. And the beta coordinate transformation is also invertible. That means once you are defining a transformation from V to Rn, you can also revert it from Rn to V using L inverse. And L inverse is what? That means L inverse is defined. That means you are having a coordinate. You can see that you can say that actually this one is what? Nothing. It is a linear combination of i's. You will get back your pre-image of this coordinate. What could be pre-image of this coordinate as a linear combination of I, and that would happen to be F. In particular, you can, so you don't have to do all find the pre-image of every element. So suppose Rn, what is the basis of Rn? So Rn is having several bases, but most important basis is the standard basis. A standard basis of Rn is what? E1, E2, E3 up to En. So that is the standard basis. So what is EIs? So in during the vector class, I had already mentioned EIs are a standard unit vector. A standard unit vector, that means if you are taking suppose E1, E1 means at first place there is 1 and any other place other entries are 0. That means E1 is what? It is this unit vector 1, 0, 0. It will go up to also last entry is 0. That means in EI, ith element is 1 and rest entries are 0. Ith entries are is 1 and rest entries are 0. All are 0. Only ith is 1 and others are 0. That is EI. It is having very special meaning. So we don't need to find inverse of every entry. Just what we do, we find inverse of ith a standard vector, a standard basis element of R, and through that we can express things. So the what is the diagramming view of the coordinate transformation? We can observe like this way. So we are starting from V to Rn. So take any element from V. So definitely V is having basis element f1 up to fn because it is having dimension n. So f, it can be written as a linear combination of this basis element f1 up to fn. Now we can apply coordinate transform and we can get coordinate of f as n-dimensional vector. As n-dimensional vector. Remember that here f is anything. Here is f is anything. It may be function, it may be matrices. But in right hand side, coordinate of that anything, any kind of element, it becomes a Euclidean vector, n-dimensional Euclidean vector. That is the idea of defining coordinate transformation. So now one more time, we will introduce dimension, then I will go for several examples. So dimension of a linear space. What is the dimension of a linear space? So if a linear space V has a basis with n elements, so that basis of linear space contains n element, then all other basis of V also contains exactly n elements. So that's why this n is invariant with respect to several bases of linear space V. So that's why this n we are calling it dimension of V. So one question I will solve it, and after that I will discuss this question. After that I will wind up to this class. So we have, question is we have to find basis of or collection of all 2 by 2 matrices. That means it is a space of all 2 by 2 matrices. Thus, we have to determine the dimension of this linear space R2 by 2. So, what is the criteria? We have to take any element from this collection of 2 by 2 matrices. So any element 2 by 2 matrix we can write in this form. A row wise. First row is AC. Uh, First row is AB. Write in a proper way. Second row is CD. We are writing in row wise CD. So which can be further written as what? So if you try to write in simple form, so you can say that this matrix A, B, C, D, you can write it like this way: A times this matrix 1 0 0 1, B times plus B times 0 0 1 0 plus C times 0 1 0 0 plus D times 0 0 0 1. So you can decompose this matrix like this way. So it looks that any 2 by 2 matrix is a linear combination of these four a special kind of matrix. These four a special kind of matrix. So if you try to see in R2, these are just unit vectors. So these are having very interesting correlation with uh, a standard basis element in R4. So we will try to prove that. So we have already expressed a general 2 by 2 matrix in that as a linear combination of these four special matrices. Now we will claim that these special four matrices span. So a span and this R2 by 2, and these are also linearly independent. So from the last picture, we had already seen that these four matrices span all the collection of 2 by 2 matrices. Also, from zero component test, we can claim that these matrices are linearly independent. So we have the basis of R2 by 2. That means collection of 2 by 2 matrices. And what is the dimension? How many elements there are in this spaces? 4 elements. So that's where dimension of this R2 by 2 is 4. Okay. Regarding attendance, you go and mark your attendance there in the Google Classroom. And if you are having any question, you can ask. Otherwise, I'm going to wind up today's class. Anyone is having any question?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we have already discussed spaces, subspaces, independence,
Yeah.
and all those things. Then why are we discussing it again?
Because we are generalizing the idea of vectors to other a special kind of vector, like function also will play the role of vectors. Like when you will study Fourier space, that time what kind of element you will deal with in Fourier space? You are having function. You have to deal with function. So function you try to express as a linear combination of sine and cosine. So that time sine and cosine will come as a basis element, and there would be coefficient, and coefficient, if you just consider only coefficient, and coefficient would play vector role, Euclidean vector. And if you focus on basis element from sine and cosine term, then you are getting a function, you are expressing function as a linear combination of sine and cosine. So that function is also a vector. But how is a vector? So we have to see those kind of things. So it is a generalization approach. That's why I'm going to study. I won't take much time here. Just whatever things we discuss in Euclidean space, and I told that whatever general subspace or linear space we will study, we will try to map every linear space to Euclidean space Rn in term of coefficient or in term of coordinate. So did you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Further, also you might have already seen that polynomial. I have already discussed about class of polynomial up to degree 2. So polynomial, does it look like a vector? Not. Simply we can't say that polynomial is a vector or not. But actually polynomial is also forming a vector, and if you are taking a polynomial of degree up to 2, it is having isomorphism with respect to R3. Why? Because polynomial of degree 2 is having 3 coefficient. ABC, A plus BX plus C x squared. So that's the collection of all polynomial of degree up to 2. It is forming having equivalent nature what R3 is having. So if you do want to do some kind of operation with polynomial P2, that means polynomial of degree up to 2, then say whatever operation you want to do it here, same operation you can do it there in R3 as well, and vice versa. So that kind of things we will come across to know. Later you will get a lot of application. Don't worry. There is a purpose. Whatever I will discuss in this class, there is a purpose. Okay. Thank you for asking question. And